Hello and welcome back to a new video here on the Lötwig Fusel channel in my game engine video series. Now in the last videos we have worked a lot to make this, basically a working IMGUI sample. You could call it like that, but it's quite nice. And what I want to do is I want to make this one now build a bit better, because as you can see we have managed all of these with just Visual Studio and projects, and they wanted to initially keep it simple and do not have like a very big build system around. And yeah, while the basic idea around that was quite noble, I am a bit at the point where yeah, I think that it's no longer what I want. I do want to make it a bit easier. I do want to have a bit more control when pulling in other dependencies, and I just want to make it a bit cleaner. And for that, what I'm going to do is I'm going to do and use something that I have already prepared for that. I have something called MoxPP. This is a template that I have once made that allows you to easily manage your repositories. And what I'm going to show you today is how to integrate MoxPP when you already have a repo. So yeah, it's a bit hard if you already have a repo to at some point go and do something like that, but I'm going to show you how it works. So first of all, I'm going to download a zip so that I have MoxPP as a zip. So I have it on a different screen. Here it is, MoxPP with all of its glory. Okay, so I want to copy that, and what I now want to do is I want to reveal it in the file explorer. Okay, there's Game Engine, and what I want to do is I want to create a subfolder and call this subfolder new. Okay, so now I have a full subfolder called new. First thing that I'm going to do, paste all of my code in here, and now I have MoxPP living alongside with our repo in the folder called new. And now the idea is to copy everything that we need step by step over. Now Visual Studio is closed. That's really important that we do not be in open here. And let's first now start with cleaning it. So we have this bin directory with obj and all of that in the build and the vs directory. These two directories are just some auxiliary stuff that we need for Visual Studio and for our output. We don't need them, so let's delete them. Let's first get rid of all of the stuff that we don't need. Okay, so since we're moving to a build system, we don't really need our GameEngine.sln anymore. We don't need any Visual Studio related files. The readme.md, it's empty. Delete it. Okay, so what's with our git ignore? Okay, we should still have this one. Let's go into the vendor directory. We have IMGUI, we need that one, but we also have the projects for it. Delete it. We have the license, that's good, let's keep it. Backends, just code, that's all good. So IMGUI is ready. We could copy that over into our new directory as soon as this is ready. Okay, so let's go into our source. There we go. We have our empty game. We have an ini file here for IMGUI. Well, we don't really need that, and let's remove it. We also have here the project files. We can remove them. Now we are just left with the guts of the project. That's nice. Same goes for engine core. Just delete all of that. We are left with the guts. Okay, nice. Then let's go in here, delete them. Just the guts that we have in our system. Nice. Okay, so now we are quite far. We have cleaned it up. So now let's take a look at our new structure. We have a readme.md that is like giving us a lot of instructions on what we shall do with MoxPP. Okay, sure, we're gonna read that one later. Nice. We don't have any license file in here, so let's directly start moving our license file over to the new directory. Okay, there it is. Now we have our license here. Let's now check that we also have a git ignore in here. You can already see that it ignores all Visual Studio stuff. It's even better. It's already adjusting that the project files do not go in here. And it's also taking care about build, temp, and deploy folders so that we really get rid of all of temporary stuff. So all git ignore, it's also obsolete. Sure, let's get rid of it. Okay, so now we are more or less just left with our C++ code and with our new build system. Now you can see that we already have a source folder here, so we could merge them together. But I don't want to do that just yet. What I want to do is I want to first make sure that we understand how the new build system works, how the new MoxPP works. It's a template repository. It provides a lot of things and a lot of glory in it. I first want you to understand how it works before we actually go in and move our files over. And for that, what I'm actually going to do is I'm going to open this in the integrated terminal. So now basically this is our root. We can now more or less deal the new folder like if it would be our root. And MoxPP works quite simple. You run the command moxinit. It needs to be a CMD. If it's not a CMD, you need to run /mox.bat in it, at least on Windows. But for now, since I'm on Windows, we can just do a quick or on a normal CMD, a quick MOX init, and we can see what it does. So it works with preamek5 and Conan, and you can see it's already doing a lot of things in the background, and we get a lot of text input, but that's okay. So basically, what is it doing? Let's quickly step through that. So first of all, it's downloading preamek5. This is the build system. We need it. It downloads the binaries. It's all integrated. It's nice. And then you can see that we are getting a lot of colored output. Why are we getting this? Well, because MoxPP runs with Conan. So for running with Conan, and in general for running MoxPP in general, what you need is you need Python. You need to have a modern version of Python installed on your system, and you need to do a global pip install Conan. Yes, I know people hate global pip installs. I'm not a Python developer. I hope you are also not. So if you're just using Python for your auxiliary programming, sure, do your global pip install. And you need to install Conan. And as soon as you have this done, it's more or less everything that you need. Of course, you need Visual Studio. But as soon as you're done, it basically is ready to go. And you can see that in here it's telling us a few informations. We are on Windows, we are on NSVC 139, we are on a debug build with a dynamic runtime with CPP20, Microsoft Visual C++ compiler in debug mode, x63, x64. You can also see that we could also do release in here, but we don't really care about that. You can see that it loaded something called the Conan file, that this Conan file has requirements to the FMT library and SPDlog. This is how we roll with MoxPP by default with SPDlog and FMT, which is, I think, always nice, and I always have these dependencies in here, and we can now also, or could also now use SPDlog for logging. So yeah, we already can do that. That's nice. It's doing a few things on there. It's giving us an information that SPDlog and FMT are using old Conan conventions. Yeah, sure, we don't really care. We only care about the install finished successfully, because that's what we need. You can see that it runs something with preamek and things, and you don't really care what's going on in there. It's going to spill this out 2 times. It's spilling this out 2 times because for debug and release, and then at some point again you're going to get the green install finished successfully, which is good. The next thing that it does is it says that it's building the configurations. It's running the action Visual Studio 22, and then it generated MoxPP.sln and the Hello World VC projects and the VC projects.user, and it says it was done in 26 milliseconds. The whole command took longer, but this is preamek and everything above there is Conan, and this is how my 2-step pipeline works. It works with Conan and it works with preamek to generate your project files. Okay, so what it has now generated is something called MoxPP.sln, which is a Microsoft Visual Studio solution that contains the source code of our application Hello World. And there it is. There's another main.cpp, which is running an SPDlog1, just to show that SPDlog is working with Hello World. And if I run that, let's just give it a bit of time. There we go. We're going to get a warning, Hello World. Okay, that looks cool. We can do Hello World. Very, very nice. Now the only thing that's now left to do is to move this to our code. So let's go again. Let's delete all of these example stuff. So the main.cpp, the new one in here, that's inside of new source. We don't care about that one. Let's delete it. There are also project scan generated. You can directly see that they are ignored by Git. That's also okay. We can delete them. We don't care. Okay, so what we now also have is a build.lua. I'm not going to delete this file just yet, because this is something that we're going to use as a starting point to then later on modify the build system. Now let's actually take a look at the readme.md and take a look on how MoxPP works. Okay, so important things to know. The template only supports the configurations, Windows for Windows, Linux for Linux, only 64-bit builds, that's okay. Dependencies, Python 3, Conan, pip install Conan, Visual Studio, and build essentials on Linux. This is kind of like the requirements that we have. More information in building.md. Building.md is a file that directly shows how you can build and how you can run or work with the project. You should keep that, because this is basically what comes in built-in. So this is something that we just support, that I just implemented, that template can just do out of the box. So you can keep that. As soon as you don't change something from the pipeline, this works out of the box. Okay, let's jump back to the README. Then you have a checklist here. The checklist basically shows the way that you should do to check if everything works. So first of all, it should it tells you that you should check that the project works on the system. We have done that, so we can put in an X here to basically indicate that we are done. We haven't checked on Linux, but I think we will for now not support Linux, so I will keep this unchecked. Then what we shall do is we shall take a look at MOX.lua, which is the configuration, and then we should modify it to our needs. So yeah, let's take a look at that. MOX.lua. MOX.lua is the root configuration for the project. So you can see that it currently calls the product MoxPP. It's of course no longer our product. This is also white code solution that we can delete. MoxPP, we want to call our product GameEngine. That's our product. Okay, so we give it a new name. Very, very nice. Then we need to specify the configurations. We are specifying them with two arrays, one for the name and one for the configuration indication. So this basically says we have a configuration debug and release. The debug one is a debug configuration, the release one is not a debug configuration. And then what I want to do in here for our purposes is I want to add a develop configuration. Develop, that's the configuration that we want to add, and the develop configuration is no debugging configuration. Then what we want to do is we want to specify our source folder. So where is our source code related? By default it's source. We also had it in here, so we're going to keep it as source. And now the things are getting interesting because now it basically asks us how our project architecture is. We have multiple versions of defining or ways of defining our project architecture: single, flat, and hierarchical, as well as manual. By default it's single, and basically what we had in here in the source file, we just had our main, or in the source folder we had our main and our build.lua. This means single. We have just a single project to build. We can step this up to flat or hierarchical. Flat basically means that we're going to have subfolders in here, and each subfolder is equivalent to one project. Or what we can do is we can make it hierarchical, which basically adds one more level of abstraction. So basically what you're going to have is that you're going to have folders in folders. So you're going to have a group name and then a project name in a folder. And that's exactly what we want to do and how we want to copy over our code. So we want to copy it to hierarchical. Okay, so let's continue a bit on. How is the macro prefix? So prepending to all macro, game engine. Or let's just call it engine. Engine underscore, that's what I want to do. So engine underscore is now our prefix. Okay, very, very simple. Everything else here, we don't really care. This is advanced usage. We just want to do it like this. And this is already a lot of work done now. What we now just need to do is we need to copy over our code. So what I want to do is I want to make a new folder and call this one GameEngine. That's our engine. That's the name of our project, GameEngine. And then what I want to do inside of this GameEngine folder is I want to copy my empty game, my engine core, and Windows. And actually I just want to have my engine core and engine Windows in here. So I'm going to take them, drag them up here, move them in there. So now we have engine core and Windows. And what I want to do is I want to even rename that to core and Windows. And you can see that there's a new pattern emerging. We now have game engine, core, and Windows. And this should also fix, hopefully, the IntelliSense issues that we had with the folders, because I think it was not really working because of the way the project was structured. Now, what we are now left with is only the game and the vendor directory. Now, in my source directory, I want to make a new folder, games. So now we have the game engine and we have a folder games. And in the folder games, I just want to drag my empty game. So now we have games, empty game, and game engine, core, Windows. And now the source folder here is completely empty. The only thing left is the vendor folder. And inside of here, we have a folder, ImGUI. And that's actually quite simple. We drag the whole vendors folder in the source folder here and just move it. The only difference is it's now basically in source. And I think, yeah, I'm to just keep the convention, just gonna make vendor capitalized. And then we have vendor ImGUI. Okay, so now the only thing left to do is to adjust the build scripts. Now we have moved all of our source in here. Everything is in the new directory, which renders the use of this new directory kind of like redundant. We can quickly delete all of the things that we don't need that are not in Git. Just that we do not copy so many files around. And I just want to move all of them in the root. And I just want to get rid of the new folder in here. Why is the new folder? It's a bit, I think because it's open. I cannot go in there if it's open. Let's just delete it like this. What's wrong with the root folder? Okay. It's in the terminal open. Let's go and delete it. There we go. Now it's away. And now basically you can see that we have now a nicely migrated structure and a ton of commits messages that are yelling and screaming at me. Okay, but that's not really something that's a problem for now. Now the main problem is that we're going to have is that these are currently not going to compile because, well, we changed a lot, and what's missing is this build.lua file. This build.lua file needs to be there for every folder that we have. For every project that's been built, we need this build.lua. I'm taking this one as a template, and I'm going to go into my game engine, and I'm going to go into core, and I'm going to paste it in here. We have a two-dimensional hierarchy, so we do not need to put it on the first level, we always need to put it on the second level. And now what I want to do is I want to adjust my core to my kind of like requirements. You can see that the build is nicely annotated, the build.lua. So first step is the name of the game, the name of the project, and the output name. So I'm going to call the name core, so it's the engine core, and the output is going to be game engine. So game engine, it seems a bit odd, core. I do want to have a different output name than actually project name to just make the output a bit more meaningful. So the library, how it's been generated, will be called game engine core, and the project itself will be called core. The next thing that we are specifying is the language. We're going to say MoxPP with the CPP standard. So CPP 20 is what we want to use. That's okay. We don't need this documentation. Good. The next thing that we need to define is the type of project that we are building. Since this is the engine, this is going to be a static lib. So we're going to call mox static lib to make this a static library. And that's actually everything that we need. We can now just define additional links or depends on, so that we can actually tell that we depend on other project. And actually, I don't want to define a link here because links are something that you would only do on the application level. So let's remove that here. But what I want to do is I want to depend on the ImGUI project. So actually what I'm going to say is that I will depend on ImGUI. So depends on ImGUI basically says ImGUI needs to be built first in order to build that. And that's more or less how it should be done. So we're going to have vendor ImGUI. This is the project name, and we want to reference that one to basically tell that we are in here. And now the only thing that I need to do is I need to now take this build.lua from core and copy it over to Windows, and then just rename it to Windows, and then game engine Windows. Simply like that. So everything else stays the same. Now in games it's going to be a bit more interesting. We're going to start with the new one and put it into empty game. Now first of all, in here I do want to keep this all the same. So this is just going to be an empty game like that. It's going to be CPP 20, that's good. It's going to be a console application, that's also okay. But what we now need to do is we need to actually link to other projects. So to which projects do I need to link? I need to link to my actual engine. This is what we also had done previously. We need to link to the engine, and we need to link to the dependencies. So I'm going to link to we can, I think, just put in the target name, or we're just going to say, since it's the project name, we're going to link to core, Windows, and ImGUI. That's more or less what I am now saying. I'm now saying we're going to link to these libraries. We need these to start with. And that's as simple as we do it in here. Now for the project in vendor ImGUI, I'm just going to copy the build.lua that we had from the engine. We're going to remove all of that. The only thing that I'm going to change in here is make it ImGUI. So it's a static lib, everything is still the same, but it's just ImGUI. And inside of here, in the engine itself, it was like, yeah, a bit more complicated. And these changes should now make it work. So let's run mox init and see if everything is good and if there's any issue in the configuration. Normally things don't go well on the first time we try them, but it doesn't look too bad currently. You can see what we generated. We generated the game engine SLN, we generated core, Windows, empty game, and ImGUI. So let's open this up, GameEngine.sln, and see what we got. Okay, so you can immediately see that our solution is way more structured. We have game engine, games, and vendor. If I open up vendor, I see ImGUI. That looks good. Can we try to build ImGUI? Let's try to build it. Does ImGUI build? It builds. That's really cool. So let's take a look at our game engine. Okay, core looks good. Windows looks good, right? We have a core now, and we have Windows. Does that build? I'm not so sure about that. Okay, as you can see, our core does no longer build. It doesn't build because I changed a bit on how the include structure works. The include structure needs to reflect the folder hierarchy now. So it's not engine core, it's going to be game engine core. And I hope now my includes work a bit better. Let's try this out. Game engine, okay, game engine core, and you can see it already works better. It's, I don't know, it's a bit odd. So how can we fix that? Well, we're just going to fix it with a Control F and search and replace. I'm just going to search for game engine core is the new path that I want. This is the old one, so I want to find everything that looks like that and the entire solution, and boom, 12 occurrences replaced. That's good. For Windows, there is going to be some issues as well. So if I would go to the graphics.cpp, you're going to see that we have issues here. So let's do the same thing here as well. So we search for that and replace it with Windows and an entire solution. Boom, 12 occurrences replaced. And this should at least make our core build again. Does it build? Yeah, it built. Does Windows build? Build. Yeah, Windows did not build. Okay, so now you can see that I can no longer reference IMGUI. That's actually a problem that we need to fix with our build system. We could just go and make it include and work a bit better. We could just go and do vendor IMGUI, but I'm not sure if this is a good idea to do. Maybe it's a good idea. Maybe we can try if this works, but this could later on give us problems. Let's try to build Windows. Does it now compile? No, I cannot open source file IMGUI. Okay, that's interesting that we have this issue here. Preamek once IMGUI impl API. Okay, so actually the header is no longer able to find IMGUI. It says it can, but it cannot. The problem is that we have some custom includes that we need to fix, and for that we need to adjust the build system a bit. Now, since this build system is using Lua, it's really easy to adjust it. So what we could do is we could just write some function somewhere and allow us to basically add our include directories and our include configurations. How is that the best way to do that? I'm not sure. Include this function is called in manual configuration to include the project. We can basically, what we can do is we can implement that hook. So basically this function here, this function cmox function setup project, this function is called for each project when it's being configured. And this function is that we want to catch. So this function, it's called for every project. And in this one, I want to include more directories. I'm not sure how we do that, but we can do that with preamek5 github.io, this page, and if I search here for include dirs, so the include directories, I think it's that one. Yeah, exactly. Include dirs is how we need to call it, and we can basically just say, okay, we're going to give you some more include directories here, and we should be able to define a few more include dirs. We have something called tokens, like the workspace.name, but what I want to do is I want to go for the workspace location. So it's done by percentage and then the curly brackets. So I can basically do like that, workspace.location, and then I can say inside of the workspace location in source vendor, I want to include that folder. So vendor is by default accessible, and so that IMGUI internally works as well. I'm also going to go into the IMGUI directory, and by basically adding them and rerunning mox.init, it should update all of our projects to a state where IMGUI is includable. So we can just remove it like this. If I now compile that, of course F5 doesn't work. You're gonna see the hard message here again. You can see that 2 succeeded. So now that compiles succeeded successfully. So you can see that the core still works, the Windows still works, and what I now still need to do is I need to fiddle a bit around with the game. Let's just set the game as a startup project. I think it should in theory directly work because we used control replace or control F replace all, and I could just be able to run a complete game. The only problem that we're now going to have is that we now have unresolved symbols again, because we have a bit of a problem to linking to DirectX 12. So what we just can do inside of the game, we just need to link to the DirectX 12 runtime. We can do this by, let's just close this all. I really hate if I have a lot of things in my games.lua. I would just additionally link, so maybe I add a comment, so projects in solution, and then system libs, and I just say that I want to have links between d3d12.lib, dxgi.lib, how was it called, dx guides, GUIDs. What did I delete? I deleted some solution file for empty game v6 project. What did I use here for linking to these libraries? So d3d12, dxgi, and dxguid. Yeah, it's that one. Okay, so I just need to change them. Then I need to rerun the init function. Okay, and here I am, preloading the project and running the debug configuration. And here we are again. We have our DIM-GUI demo and we have our working game again. Now there is one problem that we do not see yet, but the problem is that we do not have our debug layer, because this one is still requiring other defines. If you remember, the D3D12 debug required this conf debug, but this conf debug is no longer defined because we changed our build system. We called the prefix engine, and what we now have as a prefix is the engine debug. This is our new prefix that's been used everywhere, engine debug, because the configuration is called debug. By the way, develop is also there, so if I would go to develop, this is away. However, we would have the engine develop or the engine ndebug macro available. And the same goes for release. So this is all taken care of automatically. The only thing we really need to do is we need to make sure that all of these conf debug are replaced. So we're just going to do it the easy way. 2 occurrences replaced. Okay, so now we're like 2 more places where they were left. And now if I change that, we are now back again with a proper debug build. And we now have a proper build system. Now, the nice thing with this build system is that we can from now on add as many projects as we want. Normally what you would want to do is, if you want to have it in a sophisticated way, you would actually want to define this as a function with just a game name, and you could even go, I've even tried with that build system since it's Lua to auto-generate files and things like that. It works. You can really auto-generate files. You can iterate through the projects that you have created to link automatically to all of your engine core projects and to all of the dependencies to automatically link to them, to not maintain this list here manually. I even used it already to, depending on the libraries, even generate boilerplate code. So I once tried to make like a modular application, and you would just create a module, and if you create a module, it would automatically generate, like in the exes, in like the module consumers, it would automatically generate based on the table if you want to use the modules or not. It would automatically generate the boilerplate code to load these modules in, and you can then like do DLLs on the debug side, and you could even go further with like hot reloading DLLs if your application framework supports it, of course. And there's really a lot possible with this build system because it's scriptable. It's Lua. It's a programming language. You can do with it whatever you want. And this is what I prefer over CMake. Even though CMake has, I think, more application areas than this framework, of course. Yeah, you can see we changed a lot. And as soon as we're going to require some external dependencies, well, we're going to use this conan file, because with just one line of code, so after requires and then an ID, you can pull in an external library, and it's available. It's there. So yeah, I now feel a bit more at home because we changed a bit how the build system works, and we changed a bit the folder structure, which I think is good. IMGUI would be available as a package on Conan, however, it does not really work the way you would think it works. So personally, for me, IMGUI should still be pulled in manually. Only thing is with STB, that might fool us later if we want to either use STB again and they already have it in IMGUI. We might have problems with it, but yeah. For me now, it's quite cool. We are quite far already. And I think in the next video we can then finally start thinking about a 2D renderer. So yeah, a bit of auxiliary code that we did the last videos to make it a bit more maintainable. Now the build system updates, that's definitely how we want to do it. So thank you for watching, see you in the next one, make sure to like and subscribe, and have a nice day. Bye!